Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I guess it's morning for me, but I don't know what it is for you. My name is Lindsay. I am the owner of Mama Clark Bakes, a home-baked cookie kit company based in Red Deer. If you're not from Red Deer, somebody may have maybe bought you these, but that's where I am based. I am going to show you today how to make these gorgeous Valentine's cookies. I always encourage that whenever you're making my cookies that you free reign, that you look up, maybe go on Pinterest or Instagram, come up with some ideas of your own. You don't have to do that, and I will walk you through how to do this exact set if you just want to copy what I'm doing or have what you are doing. I'm going to move these off to one side and I am going to show you everything that is in the kit that you have. So the first thing that you will have, this is called the Love Rookie Kit. Rookie meaning that you, it's a more of a beginner kit. You just have three different icings, but all in one consistency, and I'll show you how to use that. I do have a deluxe kit that has more colors with an outline consistency as well as a flood, but this one you can get amazing results with just this one consistency, and I'm going to show you how. So you'll have your 8 heart cookies, you'll have a little pot of sprinkles, you will have a little pack of toothpicks that are going to help you spread your icing out, and you're going to have a spare icing bag, and I'll kind of talk to you about what that is for. It's just in case you make an oopsie when you are cutting your bags. So let me talk to you a little bit about the icing. You'll also have these 3 bags of icing in white, pink and red. And the first thing that you want to do before you do anything else is massage your icing. So these are fresh ones, so I can't really show you. But when they sit, they will separate out a little bit. So you'll get like a dark line of icing down one side, and you can have a tendency to have very watery icing towards the tip and thicker icing elsewhere. So the first thing you want to do is give your bag a massage. I always package them so that there's enough room so that you can give them a really, really good squish around. One thing that is quite fun is to put your finger in the end and give it a really good roll around up inside there. Kind of hold on to the end as well. They are sealed, but you don't want anything to come out of the end just in case it's not completely sealed. So once you've given them a really good massage, you're going to just hold it upright and just squeeze the icing away from the tip a bit, because you're going to cut the bag and you don't want it all to come running out as soon as you've done it. So just squeeze the icing away like that from the tip. And then there is a little seam on the icing. Actually, maybe I'll show you on the red one. It's a bit more, no, pink. It's a bit more visible. I've actually already cut that red one. I had to do a retake. So there is a little seam that you can see. Let me just zoom right in so that you can really see what I'm doing here. There is a seam, and you want to just push your icing away from the tip, like I said, hold it upright, squeeze it away, and then just with your fingernails, flatten out the tip of the icing, and then you're going to cut the tip with the smallest, sharpest scissors that you have as close to the end as you can. You want to do it as close to the end as you can because you don't want too much coming out. That's a really nice little line I have there. Just give it a squeeze when you come out. As long as you can kind of squeeze out a bit of a line, that's good. We're going to actually outline some of our cookies, and then you can cut a bigger hole in order to get them out a little bit later so that you can flood the inside of your cookies. Now the purpose behind this bag here, let me just wipe that icing up, is that the spare bag is in case you have a bit of an oopsie and you cut too big, or you've finished flooding and you want to go back and add some finer details. I've just added one extra one in for you. And the quick way to transfer the icing from one bag to another is to just open it up, cut a bigger hole in the bag of icing to make it easier to squeeze it out, put it all the way into the end, and then squeeze it, pushing it all the way down and gradually easing your bag out, and then you will have transferred your icing into a spare bag and you can start again in case you made a bit of a mess up. If you make more mess up than one bag, you can also at a pinch use a sandwich bag or a little Ziploc bag and push it into the corner and then twist the bag really tightly. It will work. It won't be quite as neat as using these ones, but that's a little tip that you've got there. Just a couple of rules before we start. First rule is that you got to have fun doing it. Second rule is don't take this too seriously. The cookies will taste just as good whether you've messed it up or whether you haven't. No fighting with your brother and sister. If you're doing it with somebody else, mum, if you're doing it on your own, then make sure you have a nice drink to drink while you're doing this. And no licking toothpicks or licking icing bags. I can guarantee somebody at your table will do that. All right, so let's get going. We're going to start off with, this is called a wet on wet technique. I'm going to show you these 3 cookies that all have the same technique here. This is such a cool technique because it looks so effective and it's actually really simple to do, and I'm going to show you exactly how to do it. And the reason it's called wet on wet is we're putting wet icing onto a wet base. It leaves a smooth surface rather than a technique where with these dots you can see they are more raised. I put wet icing onto dry icing. So a wet on wet technique means that it will kind of disappear down into it but still be obvious. So I'm going to show you, I'm not going to decorate a full 8 cookies today. I'm just going to show you the techniques and then you can have a little play. So let me just put that one up there and we're going to recreate this cookie. So first of all, I'm just going to cut a hole in my white icing bag. And then the way to get a really neat look on your cookies is to try and outline the outside. Now, you're going to do that by touching down. I'm going to play around in the middle of my cookie because I'm going to cover up that afterwards and it doesn't matter. So you can do the same. Give it a gentle squeeze, touch it down and lift it up. And you can see that you can control where it goes to. So if I touch down here and lift it up, you will get a way smoother line than if you try to hold it really down close. You can actually lift it up fairly high. You can also practice this just onto a piece of paper before you go onto your cookie. That's a good way to kind of have a little practice. But the way that you keep it looking really smooth is to do an outline first. That will hold your cookie in. Now ideally finish your outlines, decide what colors you're going to do your cookies and finish your outlines and put them off to dry a little bit. They will hold on way better. And then once you've done that, you can cut a little bit of a bigger hole in your bag so it's easier to get the rest of the icing out. But don't worry about that too much. I'm actually just going to squeeze really hard here with my little hole, and that also works really good. Now you're going to flood your cookie. So flooding means that we're just going to kind of put all of the icing in and then it will start to flatten out. Now I like to kind of go around the outside and then just fill it in as I go, but you can do one side, then the other side. When you're first starting, a tip is not to go all the way up to the edge. If you go all the way to the edge, the chances are that you will overflow your little lines. I can go to the edge because I've been doing this a long time, but that's one tip. You can see that I've not gone all the way to the edge. So now I'm just going backwards and forwards and I'm just filling in this cookie, and those edges are doing a great job of keeping everything there. And then you can take your toothpick. I use something called a scribe here. I have a metal scribe that I use. I'm just used to using that. But take a toothpick and then drag your icing to the edge here so that you're bringing it up and just to the edge. Now this is a fairly thick icing that we use in these kits. I have another kit called a deluxe kit which has a thick outline and a thinner flood consistency, and so it floods easier. And you can see that's already smooth, but if it's not, push your toothpick into it and give it a bit of a shake. As you shake it, it will start to settle down, and then you can just kind of drag that, just play with that little hole that you have there, and then give it a drop. All right, now working pretty quickly here, I'm going to show you how to do these lines of hearts. Now the reason that I say you have to work quickly is you don't want this layer to dry before you do your hearts. So I'm going to do some rows of just circles. That's all I'm doing with my little hole cut in it. I'm just squeezing onto my wet icing and making some dots in rows. Just like that. You can make them, the bigger the dots, the bigger your hearts, obviously. And then with your toothpick, before it dries, you just hold your cookie nice and still and just drag through them. I'm going to put one more dot up here, just close up to the edge. You can always kind of change it a little bit. Bring that one down into there. The same with this one, just drag all the way through and it will turn it into a heart. This is one of my favorite techniques because it's just so effective. And then with my pink icing, just like this one, I'm just going to literally just drop some lines in between here. You could do 2 rows of different hearts if you wanted. You could be putting big pink dots here if you like. and then just bring it across. And that is that to let it dry. I'll show you one more time with this technique, and I'm going to do this one, I think, with a pale pink. So I'm going to color this. Got a little divot in my cookie there that I'm just going to cover up. So I'm going to outline with my pink, remembering to touch down, lift up, and any time you want to change direction, just touch down again. And then up and round and down. All right. So I'm going to flood this one. And I'll give you a couple of tips while I'm kind of just talking about flooding here. So always make sure that you have twisted the top of your icing bag underneath where I've sealed it. You want to try and twist underneath and squeeze above that line, holding your bag up here. See, I'm not holding my bag down too low. Otherwise, you'll push the icing back up into your, in towards the top, and it can explode if you're not careful. I'm cutting a bit of a bigger hole there just because that was really hard to get out. There you go. See how much that's coming, how fast that's coming out now. As I say, you don't want the hole to be too big. And then the other tip that I have is if it does start to flow over the edge at all, you can kind of get your toothpick and just pull it back inside the line again. And sometimes that will help to rescue it. So I'm just flooding. So this is called outlining and flooding. So I did the outline and I've done the flood. And I'm going to go all the way up to the edges with my icing. But if you've done a few kits now, you might feel confident enough to do that. I actually very rarely have to use my scribe now that I've been doing it a little bit longer. A little wiggle and a shake. And then I'm going to show you a couple of fun things here. I'm actually going to do something a little bit different from this one here. I am going to do a double color. So I'm going to do a big red. And you get your dots bigger just by squeezing longer. Really is that simple. The shorter time you squeeze, the smaller your dots. The bigger time you squeeze, the bigger your dots. You can also just leave these dots as they are if you don't want to turn them into hearts. It makes pretty fun cookies on its own. I'll show you just before I turn them into hearts how cool they look just with the dots as well. So it's entirely up to you how you do it. See, they look great just like that. Now I'm going to go into the center of my red. You do not have to do this. You could alternate. So see this one here, I did one red, one pink onto a white. So I could be doing one red, one white, but I thought I'd just show you this because it's a little bit fun as well to put them on the inside. So remember, don't leave these too long. So you don't want them to set before you drag. You'll just find that it will create some cracking and some puckering in your icing. Again, that's a pretty cool look if you wanted to leave it just like that. But I'm going to get it and I'm going to go all the way around, dragging my hearts. I'm aiming for the center of them. I'm going to come down to the bottom and I'm going to start again up here. I'm going to go round and down to the bottom. Now you can already see, maybe you can't, that there's a little bit of puckering on my icing just there. So you do have to work pretty quick. But that is another technique. So it's just the different colors that I've used. On this one, I flooded it with pink. This one, I've flooded it with white. I'll show you this cookie. This was lots of dots, and I individually, you just will need to wipe your toothpick off in between each wipe with a little wet piece of paper towel so that you don't get smudges like this one up here. And then you can, once it's dry, you can go around and put a little outline on the top of it if you wanted to. So that is one wet on wet technique that you can try with making your hearts. And this is another one that is super fun and effective. And we're going to make a couple of those now. I'm just going to move those wet cookies out of the way so I don't mix them up with my dry ones. Oh, here's another heart one that I did. This was red and white. So you can kind of have a little look at whatever you want. But we are now going to do this dragging technique, and then you can apply that to it. I think I am going to do this one in white. I'm actually going to do two. I just saw a new idea this morning that I wanted to test with you. It's the same technique, but it just was a pretty cool look on a cookie that I saw. So I'm going to start with white. I'm going to do my outline and I'm going to flood it. And then once I've flooded this one, The way that you do this dragging and dropping is you're going to just do lines across. So you can alternate your lines, and I think maybe we'll try that on this one today. We're going to alternate red and pink lines, and we are going to just get our toothpicks and drag up and down so that you can get this really cool effect. I don't actually know what the proper term is. I call it dragging lines. I think that describes it pretty good, don't you? So let's do this across the whole cookie. I'm going to give this a shake. You can see that it's not smooth at the moment. Shake it and bang it, and it will become a beautiful smooth cookie just like that. So I've got my red and I've got my white, and I'm now going to do some lines across. Now, a tip, sometimes you'll find when you're doing lines, I've now got a big hole in my pink. Remember that I just cut it bigger. So these are going to be different size lines. Is to start squeezing just before you put your line down and then touch it down. If you squeeze once you've gone on it, you can have a tendency to have a big lump at the beginning of your lines. Again, you can practice this on a piece of paper. Don't worry too much if your lines are not super straight. The way to get them straighter is to lift higher up in the air. So squeeze at the beginning, squeeze consistently, pressure the whole way, and just let them fall. So I'm going to alternate these line colors. Now you'll see that my red is a little bit thinner than my pink. Again, it doesn't matter. If you've made a really big hole, then just rehome it into the other new icing bag. So here we are, nearly finished. And then with your toothpick, just give it a wipe or get the new one. We're going to go down, wipe, up, wipe, down. So you're just alternating and dragging those lines. I think it looks so pretty and so easy to do, and people will think you spent hours doing it. And I'm giving you all the tricks of the trade to show you that that's not true. Now, if you have some little peaks come off the edge of your cookie and you're a bit fussy, you can just tidy them up by going around the outside there. This just made my icing not quite so smooth. I just wanted that line to come down and follow there though. So there is a line dragging in a couple of different options. I did pink with red here, and here I did different colors. Now the one that I just showed you that I saw this morning on another cookie, let's go for red. The one that I saw wasn't red, but it was pretty effective. I'm going to flood using the red on the outline. You can do whatever you like. There's so many different options on what you can do. You can be even drawing another little heart on the inside of this, maybe, is another idea. With an outline, I could draw a heart here. Let me show you. And I could flood all around the outside of it and fill it in a different color. So that's not what I'm doing now, but I'm just showing you some different ideas. I'm going to cut a slightly bigger hole for flooding. And remember to breathe when you're doing this. It's very tempting to just hold your breath because you're concentrating so hard, but remember to breathe. It's very important, breathing. I'm a nurse, so I know that. I don't know if you knew that about me. I work in a hospital as well as making cookies. I've been making cookies and cakes for as long as I can remember. I think I made my first kind of proper cake, like decorated cake, when I was about 12. And I've loved it ever since. So now I get to do this as well. All right, so let's look at this one. Give it a little shake. Now the technique that I saw was just a part of the cookie at an angle here. Just a little section. Maybe I'll go across there as well. So they just did, it's very effective. Where's my scribe? I've lost my scribe. Oh, there it is. And then you can go all the same direction if you want to. You can go really close with your lines if you want to. You can spread them out. Anything that your heart desires is the rules with cookies, however you want to make them look. So the way they did it was just a little section across the middle and then little dots in groups of 3. All over here you could use your pink. I'm just literally tapping down when I'm doing these dots. So these are wet on wet dots. And I just like them in the little groups of 3. And more up here. So that you can do them however you want to. You could even do some big hearts and drop them. How cool is that one? So pretty. So that is another drag and drop. And then the last couple that I'm going to show you just one of is this idea here. So this is kind of different colors in blocks. This one, the icing that I had was a bit thick when I made it and it didn't settle super well. And this one is some lines down the middle just with dots on them. So you could do the broken heart look, but I'll show you quickly how to do this one here. And then you can create different waves. You can put the lines up sideways. In fact, let's do the opposite to this one. Let's do our lines sideways. So we're going to outline randomly. Just got a little bit of red on the end of my icing there. Just some lines, however you want them to fall. And you're going to alternate your outline. So I'm going to use a bit of pink now. You can do it however you want to. I'm going to do red. Maybe I'll come up higher with this and come down. And then I'm going to go back to white. So you're alternating how you go around. Now this one you don't have to work quite as fast with because we're just going to fill them in afterwards. I'm already regretting doing red there. I wish I'd done pink, but maybe it will look good at the end. Up and round. So as long as you don't have any gaps between those edges, you can go in and fill them now. Now I actually quite like the really flush look for this, where they look as though they've all merged into one another. So for that reason, I'm going to just go straight from one color to another. Now, remember earlier I told you that if it goes off the edge, you can grab it and pull it back in. That was just beginning to flood off the edge a little bit. So I've just pulled it back in where it should be. You know, like if you're about to run into the road with your mum and she grabs the back of your coat and pulls you back. Just like that, but with icing. Now trying not to touch the white completely, I'm just going to go around and I'm going to fill in this little section now. Now if you wanted your sections to look completely separate from each other and a little bit raised, you could fill in the colours that aren't touching each other, if that makes sense. So do one, miss one, do one, miss one. You can have a little play and see which technique you like best. So you just fill in the little colours and whatever pattern you chose to do. You can do big amounts of these, small amounts of them. I'm going to go white now. You can see I've already got red over my icing there. So earlier on as well, just to kind of, at the beginning, I showed you this heart. Let me just pause a minute. This heart that had the raised dots in it. You can do that type of thing on any of them, just literally by leaving the bottom icing to dry and then going back and doing some details on the top of it. So that's the difference between a wet on wet and a wet on dry, sorry. I think I like this better than the one that I did before. It's coming up pretty good here. So you could always put some little dots in some of the colors that you wanted to. You could come back and draw some hearts on them. You could add sprinkles. My tip for sprinkles is don't wait for your cookies to be completely dry, but don't put them on when they're completely wet either. Your colors will run from your sprinkles into your cookie if you put them on when they're completely wet. So just leave it a few minutes before putting some sprinkles on and they'll look way better. There. That is that one. So again, I can get my scribe. I've just not gone quite to the edge of the red there. The other thing, let me try this. I might regret wrecking this cookie, but let's see how it looks. Here it is, completely fresh and flooded. Leave it like that. And the other thing that you can do is come down through these areas, just in a little figure of 8, and make some waves. It's another dragging technique. You can do it along all of the edges. So if you weren't very happy with your edges, this is one little way just to make them look a bit smoother. Which one did you prefer? Did you prefer it before I did that to it? I think I liked it with the straight lines, but that's another really fun technique to just kind of drag your cookies through on that one. So let's just recap what we did there. Oh, this one is beautiful. I'm glad that I did that one. Hopefully you can recreate that one. So we did some, oh, let me just bring this one over. All right, can you see them all? Yes, you can. So here we did the wet. I did a double color dot. So I did a big red one with the white in it and I dragged it. Here I did lines across and I alternated the dragging. Here I did the lines across this way and then dragged it and did lines initially and then swirled them. So they are some pretty cool techniques. So have lots of fun. Don't forget to ask your mum to tag me in your pictures. I love to see all of your work. If ever you have any questions, or even if you're in the middle of doing these, as long as it's not the middle of the night, you can text me as well. My cell phone number is on the labels on the back of your little instruction card, and you can always text me if you're really stuck and I can try and answer you. As I said, I am a nurse, so there's a chance I might be at work, but it's worth a try. And I'll get back to you as soon as I can if I can. So I hope you have lots of fun. Now try and let these dry, preferably overnight, without touching them. You can eat them like this if you want to, but don't stack them until they're completely dry, which should be overnight. And don't put them in the fridge because the moisture can damage them. So just put them into an airtight container and enjoy them. Thank you.